Thank you very much for coming here today. For anybody who doesn't know who I am, my name's Timmy Stewart. I am one half of the Night Institute and one half of Blackbones. With the Night Institute, we've been putting events on in Belfast for about 10 years, and one thing we always knew was like if you get the opportunity to bring someone who you respect to Belfast, it's usually they're behind a booth and they're playing music, and you don't get to actually hear from them. All you get to do is hear their music, which, as important as that is, you don't really get to hear their stories. You don't really get what makes them tick and things like that. So we wanted to start this series called Cultural Conversations. The first one took place in July with Luke, Una and Errol Alkin in Sound Advice. And we just thought it would be really nice if we could just do about 4 of these a year where we invite people that we respect what they're doing and their contribution to everything to come to Belfast and sort of tell us a wee bit about why they do what they do. Dave and I want to tell the context. I felt like we were pen pals for years via emails, and this is a really nice story because it shows that connection that music brings between people. In the first record that I'd put out with my friend on the Blackbones project, Mark Manley from Belfast Music Club, himself and Roger were, I think, DJing in Bristol somewhere, and yourself and Paul Appiento, and I can't remember who else were on the bill, and they played a couple of these Blackbones tracks, and you guys were like, right, who's behind these? Then fast forward, I got a really nice email from you saying, I'm a fan of Blackbones, tell me more about it, things like that. And then every time something came out from Blackbones, you were in contact, and you were like the Mystic Arts, and you were saying, I love this. And then I was going, well, I'm also a fan of him because I really love what he does with his events, and the main thing that I really loved was that a DJ putting on events and festivals and things like that attention to detail, I could see it, because essentially that's what I did on a much smaller scale than what you did. But Dave's involved with Love International Festival, the Love Saves the Day, Glastonbury, bringing the electronic stuff to Silver Haze, isn't that correct? Forwards. Any others? There's so many. I should have written these down because
Simple Things.
Waterworks.
I think that's it.
Okay, that's enough. That's quite a lot. So the man never stops. Especially for me, Love International, I got the chance to visit it because you'd always said to me, look, I'm going to bring you guys there. And then this year you said, right, Blackbones are on the bill. And then we sort of talked about the boat party. And then you said, have someone from the festival line up on there with you. And Optimo was the obvious. And really beautiful story. And we said the Optimo, were they up for it? And they came straight back and they said, as long as we all play back to back. So it was just this really lovely thing. And we're like, right, this is going to be a really good party. And then the sad news of Keith happened not long after that, which sort of changed the dynamic of the day. But for us to be on that boat with Johnny and surrounded by people from Belfast and Glasgow and Dublin and all was pretty special. But the festival itself was really special, and the one thing that really struck a chord with me was how friendly the patrons and the people who go to the festival are. I remember getting up, I was down at the beach stage, got up, phone fell out of my pocket, someone came running after me with a phone. Everyone you met from no matter where they were in the world wanted to ask you about why you were at Love International, what was your story and things like that. And I just knew there was something really important about how that event had been cultivated to have that, because that's not something you can force, and that really struck a chord with all the ones from Belfast who were there. So that's who Dave is to me, and I want to ask him some questions, but what I want to do is bring Dave right back to the start in Bristol, and what were the things that inspired you? What were the people? What were the nights? What was happening in the city that you felt that you wanted to get involved in music?
I've got to say that was such a lovely introduction. I feel like I've got quite a lot to live up to after that, but so for me, really, the sort of formative dance music, cultural things that really got my motor running really was when I was a lot younger. I lived in London until I was about 10, and I lived in a rural market town, I think you call it, called Church Stretton in Shropshire. And there was like nothing around, we used to spend our time setting fire to bus stops and bins, that sort of thing. That was kind of the cultural activity. And then it was in that sort of like early, 92 to 94 era where there was a massive free party explosion in the UK. And they started doing, these guys called Splat started doing parties around me. Some would be in a cowshed, some would be in like a barn, some would just literally in a field. And they were absolutely mind-blowing for a young, like 14, 15-year-old who'd never been to a nightclub and didn't really understand it. My understanding of it was I'd go into the local town and pick up flyers and stick them on my wall with blue tack every week. That was kind of my, and then the little bit of culture you'd get off the telly, like The Word or Dance Energy or whatever.
Yeah.
So then go into these things, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. The music was amazing, the vibe was amazing, very political. There was a guy called Spike who'd always be on the microphone, you know, talking about fighting the system, I suppose, or just kind of like not accepting how things were. And a large percentage of people who went, and then this kind of also had an effect on the people I went to school with and college with, were all actually living in vans and really kind of like tapped into that, what was known as New Age traveller lifestyle. Now we call it New Traveller, I believe, for political correctness. And that was kind of, I was like, this is a bit of me. This is really working for me. It's very eclectic. They'd be playing like electro, breakbeat, house. They didn't really play disco, but you know, kind of most other things were 4/4 persuasion. So that was the first one. Then not long after that, I think it would be fair to say, a mouthy teenager, and there were some older people that I worked in a local supermarket with, and I'd always be, you know, giving it quite a lot of bluster, and they were like, do you know what? Stop talking, come with us, we're going to take you somewhere. And they took me to this very, very roughneck jungle night called Pandemonium in Mr. B's in Willenhall, Wolverhampton. It was on an industrial estate. There were a lot of guns. It was very, very, what I would have called rude in those times. And it was like, whoa, right, okay, this is like the other end of the spectrum. But I also found that very exciting as well. So that was how I got my first entry. Then quite quickly after that, we were talking about Luke a minute ago, my girlfriend at the time, her sister was at uni in Manchester, so I got exposed to that really exciting, massively eclectic, interesting period where it was kind of like early Ninja Tunes, but then also you'd have like Electric Chair, basically kind of like hip hop, everything from hip hop to drum and bass, techno, all thrown into the mix. And I was like, I didn't realise you could have all of this in the same thing. And again, that was kind of what really got me going massively. Then I went to Leicester, cultural wasteland of that city is, and there used to be this brilliant night on a Sunday called Zen Masters, and they were kind of very much in that same vein. I think, you know, it was almost like Leicester's answer to Cold Cut. There's a few of them, they'd be like scratching, mixing, and again, everything from like Marlena Shaw to like Drexciya and whatever. And I was just like, this is me. So me and a friend of mine started our night, multiple personalities. It was £2 to get in if you didn't know us, and £1 to get in if you did.
Mates rates?
Exactly, official mates rate, early mates rates. And in the sort of like back room of a Mexican restaurant in Leicester. I mean, it was so unglamorous, but it was great fun. And that was kind of how we got going. And then a few years later, I moved to Bristol. And at that point, I don't know if I became more professional, but we started a night where we would have the likes of Giles Peterson, Attica Blues, Kruder and Dorfmeister. And that was kind of when we went from scratching around to at least the veneer of respectability.
And did you find Bristol was a city with a really strong sort of pulse for this kind of stuff?
I mean, I went to Bristol, and again, I don't know how I ended up in Leicester. I can never quite remember, but Leicester had like 2 nights that you might go to. Well, maybe not, maybe a little bit more than that, but there'd be one like dub night that was good, one breaks night, one techno night. And I went to Bristol and I was like, oh my God, there's like so many nights here. And the energy was just brilliant. And I went to a festival called Ashton Court Festival, which was that era where the government essentially paid for culture. It was all funded. And I think the first year I went, I had like Portishead, Ronnie Size, Scott Hendy and like Booker 45, all that gang. And I was just like, oh, this is free. So I went to Bristol, it blew my mind. And there were just so many brilliant nights. There was like loads of wicked like dub, reggae nights, loads of jungle nights, several house nights. There wasn't really anything that did what we did. It was called Scene, and that was kind of that eclectic mix there wasn't really anything like that, but everything else was like so well covered, and it was all really busy, and it was just, yeah.
And what do you think the catalyst for Bristol being like that was? You know, because it's spat out a lot of amazing acts and musicians and bands and stuff and all for a period, like, didn't it?
I think there's like obvious things. The Wild Bunch, you know, that is obviously a sort of critical part of Bristol's history, and you know DJ Nature is, you know Milo is. It's funny that he doesn't quite get his flowers. I'm always trying to encourage him, book him, get him to do stuff, and he's so humble. He's like, I don't think people are interested. And I'm like, you're gonna have to meet us on the road here a bit, Miles, because, you know, like, they would be interested if you let them have the whole story. He's actually, interestingly, sort of come around to that a bit more recently. But yeah, like, what they did, you know, they were really the precursor for, you know, Luke, all that eclectic
thinking
thing, you know, Optimo, all of it is kind of all, you know, throwing everything into the mix. And
was there a very strong grassroots culture, or were there people coming in, you know, in a more corporate mentality, or what? No.
I mean, there wasn't, you know, I mean, we were chatting earlier about Red Bull. That was kind of like, I'd already been in Bristol maybe 10 years at that point. That was the first bits of, you know, like corporate interest, I suppose. It's a small city. I think that has a big part of it. So you'd have these little like pockets everywhere, but then we'd like the dubstep kids and the jungle kids and us lot would all end up in the same pub.
Right.
So it's quite interesting, like cross-pollination of like little grassroots communities.
So people got on with each other within their own little.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a little bit of like, you know, like, oh, I want to book them and I want to book them, but in general it was quite, you know, pretty jovial.
Yeah, well, see, Belfast, I find like that. You know, a lot of the indies that are working on the same level will all support each other.
Yeah.
There's a slight competitiveness, you know, at times, but generally they all want each other to do well. You know, just to see it do well because it's a bigger thing that everyone's part of. You know, so how important do you think community is to nightlife and the survival of it? You know, those little communities that exist.
I mean, I think it's absolutely essential. Like, I mean, it's kind of, I think, just as a litmus test, let's take Bristol as an example. If you look at the things that have worked, still work in that city, they are all rooted in community. There's just no getting away from it. And it's kind of, I've sort of been at both ends of the spectrum on it. I've been right in the heart of the community, growing organically, and then I've also been out of that community, or that community's kind of like come to a natural end, and tried to like create community, and it doesn't really work when you force it, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then thankfully, selfishly, we've ended up coming back in again to a community. Some of the communities we've been a part of have been for 20 years. But, you know, some scenes come and go and whatever. But I just think, I was chatting to somebody about it the other day, about, I think we're almost at a bit of a juncture with electronic music, culture, parties, festivals, whatever you want to call it. You look at the sort of stuff that's happening with the corporate interests and the equity funds coming into it, and you're ending up with Festival X that is at its core a positive thing, then being a part connected to like KKR or whatever, and it's like, hang on a second, I don't think this is what most people want. So I think we're almost at a bit of a juncture where you'll find that the stuff that is really genuinely rooted in the community, because everyone says community, and it's like, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it, what is real and what isn't.
Yeah, it is.
I think you'll find there'll be like a bit of a parting where people are like, a large part of the audience don't really care. They're like, cool, I want to go and see, I will throw a name out, Peggy Goo, as an example, and then there'll be other people who are, I'm not interested in that. That's the other thing, and hopefully, my hope is that you'll end up with a bit of a natural divide where basically there's no judgment. It's like, that's for you, that's for us.
Yeah,
you know, that would be my sort of.
I think that's happening. I can see that happening here as well in Belfast, and a lot of it is as well where you will have a generation who want a certain thing and who want a certain BPM, and then there's this kind of other side of things where it goes from 20 to 50, you know, and they're into something else, and it is naturally happening for definite. When you're programming an event, what's the balance, or how do you approach it or strike it between giving people something that they don't know, but that's really good, and balancing it with stuff that they do know, which helps sell tickets?
I mean, I've not got that balance right a lot of the time, given how much money I've lost over the years.
Right.
But I think these days we're a bit better at the balance. But I think in the old days, I'd very much be like, well, you know, these lot need to listen to Attica Blues. I don't know, they're not a good example because they did well. But Bugs in the Attic, let's say, when they came out, we're like, oh, these are brilliant, they should listen to that. And we were a little bit early and it took a while for people to catch on. But again, largely from losing money, we've learnt to try and get that balance right. But it's just made me think of something there with community. When we started Love Saves the Day and Love International as well, you know, it was very much done on a trying to club communities together. So like Love Saves was like, we did Futureboogie, we had an audience. Just Jack had a like audience, you know, these different sort of like house crews, these party crews in the city. It was like bringing all those communities together was kind of what it did. And that also probably extended into the booking policy as well, because it was like, these are good for our audience, these are good for your audience. That gives us a little bit more space to be able to put some interesting stuff on around it. But you know, it's difficult. If you're trying to sell 25,000 tickets for a festival, there is an element of, we need to put these people on to sell those tickets. And then, you know, we festival organisers, bookers, end up becoming a part of the problem, where you just get that kind of like, it's the same lineup, it's the same lineup. So it's kind of like, it's almost, we've been through a period of that, and now we're at the other end where we're trying to put a more varied, balanced ticket sellers to do the lifting, and then interesting people to.
Yeah, I know, because because that's what I noticed about Love International. You know, it was very broad in terms of, you know, the lineup and the appeal for that and the age groups and everything. You know, I think you had that covered really, really well. You know, it was very exciting. You know, when you saw it, you were like, gosh, there's so many people on there I've wanted to see, and then there were people that you would expect to see. Do you know what I mean? It was really good.
I think Love International, we have quite a lot of freedom on that, because it's almost like people are coming for that show, that party. They're coming anyway, so we can basically, it's kind of like people have trust it enough now that they know they're going to get some massive names, they're going to get some, you know, club fillers, but then they're also going to get really interesting, like smaller.
The ultimate thing is, I certainly need to go to something and come away with new knowledge. You know, of something that you weren't aware of, that you went, that was mind-blowingly good. Do you know what I mean? I think that's, I can sort of see that in your lineups and the things that you do. So I want to talk as well from a DJ's perspective. What are the details that you approach an event? You know, what do you care about?
I mean, sound, obviously. First things first is sound, because, you know, if the sound isn't right, what's the point, really? I mean, I say that, if you're in some like weird little pub, it doesn't really matter, but if you're at something where you want to dance, it's got to be bang on. So that's the first thing. You know, we spend a lot of time, thought and money on beautiful looking stages that are interesting. And that's always been kind of like part of our DNA, even from the early days when I think we made that's just made me think of making a pineapple shaped DJ booth at Glastonbury once, which on paper looked much more beautiful than the reality of it. But you know, that has always been quite a big part of our DNA, I suppose.
Yeah, you're right.
What was the question again?
So just that DJ detail, you know, I ended up having this, actually, I'll tell you, because after we did a party with Optimo again, funny enough, and we were in the car afterwards, and they were telling me about the watching trees thing, and they were talking about, very excitedly, about all the details, thing, and I just went, you can totally tell your DJ's putting on an event, and it was like they wanted to create a nice environment. That the kind of thing that if they rocked up to, they would feel comfortable on it, and you would get the best out of them and all that kind of stuff. And it's that approach, you know, and I think being a DJ, putting on events can give you that sort of thinking that you're like, this is what I want to experience: good monitors, good sound, good visuals, memorable experience, you know, all that kind of stuff.
And to be honest, again, you know, Love International it's like a blessing, that one, because it's kind of like, the sound is fucking amazing. You can have that kind of slightly bigger stage, what we call a garden stage, and then the more sort of like left field one, whatever, in the Olive Grove, and then the beach stage, and then get to do the sunrise sessions, you know. So that one again, it's kind of like, it's a bit, well, the sunrise sessions, case in point, when I first, it's not that cool maybe, but when I first heard the word Balearic or thought what that was, I thought Balearic was Happy Mondays Harmony, you know, when the plane was like going off in the thing. I was like, oh, is that Balearic? And I had this vision of listening to that music next to Beautiful Sea. Went to Ibiza and was like, this isn't not what I thought it was going to be on the tin. And then we managed to do it in Croatia, and the sunrise sessions feel like, that's like, wow, I can't believe we're getting to do this.
Yeah.
And you know, so that's I think kind of the sort of thing you're talking about.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing for us, because actually it was Aaron who I'd do the Blackbone stuff with, and when we arrived on the first night and we went down to the sort of, you know, the bay where the boats are coming in and out, and the whole visual and the whole thing, it almost feels like an adult theme park. Do you know what I mean? He was like, you know, there's a stage here for amazing music, there's another stage tucked away down here, that beach stage is beautiful, you know, when you see like, it looked like it guts of about 1,000 odd people on it, and there was like a sweeping kind of searchlight kind of hitting the people, hitting the water, people jumping into the water, and it was a real pinch yourself thing. And then these boats are coming in with people dancing on them and all, you're going like, this is a lot. Do you know what I mean? Because if you go there,
I mean, honestly, this is the thing that I feel so fucking lucky to do that event, because I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps. I've been doing it for fucking 20 years. I've been going to Croatia for 20 years. This year, I was like, how is this still so exciting to me? And I was like, this is like amazing. So when I'm having like a bad day and I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'm like, you just need to shut up. You just need to shut up and fucking think about a boat party. And
that's
like,
it.
Right, yeah,
It's almost like, it's like the perfect setting, and then when you put amazing stuff into it, it's obviously just going to be that beautiful 360, you know. I would urge anyone here, if you've not been, to go to that one, because it really, I've been to a lot of events and festivals and stuff over the years, and nothing felt quite like that. It was really, really good. One thing I want to ask you, are there any misconceptions people have about promoters within electronic music?
I mean, I'd say probably a lot of the preconceptions I have at points ticked, so no. Would be the simple answer. I mean, I don't know, what's a preconception? Like staying up late?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know really. I don't know.
Party people is maybe the one I hear a lot. And then sometimes I'm in bed before everybody else. I'm like, sorry. You know, we'll work on giving you a good time, and then we'll cruise off because we're wrecked.
I mean, I'm still into late night. Like I say, I still find myself as excited by it as I was.
Totally. I just feel more tired as I got older.
I do. That's true too.
Yeah. So obviously the last few years have been quite turbulent, you know, within the sort of the music and every economy really, rising costs, licensing pressures, post-pandemic shifts. What keeps you motivated regarding pushing culture forward in these kind of times, or how, you know, have you encountered things you've had to push on through, you know?
I mean, it's a combination of things. No one else is going to give me a job. Is you know, something that's driven me since I was, you know, 20. But now beyond that, as a sort of like older person who, having come up through it and probably been on the wrong side of a lot of things, and then you look back and you go, oh, fuck, I've got that wrong, or we could have been better there, and so on and so forth. Stuff like diversity, etc. You get to a point, well, I certainly have got to a point where I'm like, shit, actually I've got a bit of a responsibility now to try, and once you see a problem or once you see your shortcomings, I find it quite difficult to go, oh, we'll ignore that. So that's definitely a big part of what drives us to be better and to, again, it sounds somewhat annoying, but to try and make things better has become something, you know, when I was 20, I was just thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? And I kind of do what I need to do that, you know, within reason. Now I feel we as an organisation definitely feel a responsibility to try. We know we can make things better, so we try and do that. So that is. Like,
and you have a team. You have an amazing team around you. Because that's one thing that I noticed. You know, I ended up speaking to Ellie and Shay and Saf and, you know, all these people. And then when we even arrived in Croatia and we went to to sort of check in and stuff. The guys in the office were really lovely, and they were saying they just come from Glastonbury with you to there and everything. So it's, you know, is it important to have those same people around you and all? And you know,
I mean, I am kind of useless without a brilliant team around me. So yes, for me personally, it is very important. And also, it's, you know, we're getting to do really exciting things, and that puts fire in your belly. You know, that and like I say, we've got a really committed, brilliant, big team of people who work around us.
But that's not an overnight thing.
No, absolutely.
Like that, sure, it's not. How does that come about?
I mean, I think it's just, you know, being in the, you know what it's like, you put on an event or a festival or something like that, there's the power of doing something together is a very strong tonic for people. And you know, if you believe in what you're doing, that you know, that doubles it, and maybe more. And I think that for years, and working with the same people and kind of like doing all these really exciting things, and knowing, I think going to bed knowing this is good shit, this is good, this is not bad for the world, this is good for the world. You know what I mean? And I think that goes a long way. Yeah,
it cultivates your team as well. What do you with the Glastonbury thing? How many years have you been working with them?
I was trying to think of this morning. I'm terrible with years, but I mean, at least 16, I think.
Right.
But I went to Glastonbury. The first time I went to Glastonbury, I was 15. One of the classics. Me and all my other 4 mates all told our mums we were staying at the other one's houses, and then went down. We had like one 17-year-old with us, I think. Broke in. Walked for about 2 hours through fields with all our like shit on our back. Got in, pitched everything on the pyramid stage field. Walked off, came back hours later, and we're like, we've been robbed. It's like, no, you're not allowed to pitch your tent there, it turns out. But me and another mate stayed the whole weekend and had like an absolutely amazing time. And my other mates were like, I'm not fucking staying here. And that was like a hugely formative thing for me. So I've been every year since then, by hook or by crook, often breaking in. Sorry, Michael. Often.
Well, that's a good trajectory. Break in and then run your own stage.
Well, yeah. Again,
that's pretty amazing.
Well, again, that's and again, that for me, when I'm there, I'm just like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And I'm sat in an office with Nick and Emily, talking about, you know, booking these ridiculous artists, and I'm like, can't actually believe this is real. And I still feel like that, so you know.
What's a kind of lead-in time for something like that?
We start everything kind of like this time of year, and then deliver in the summer.
Right.
But Silver Haze has been like a real, you know, I used to work on it. It was Dance Village, and then it was the dance area, Dance Tent, then Dance Village, then Silver Haze, and then we took it over. We were meant to take it over, and then COVID happened. So we almost had quite a few years to think about what we actually wanted to do.
Yeah, vision for it.
And then luckily they've trusted us enough to like.
And have you seen a change in attitudes to electronic music within Glastonbury since those first times you were going? Yeah.
Michael famously hated electronic music and was very vocal about it. I saw Orbital there that year, and I think they were one of the only dance acts I saw the first time I went, which was again mind blowing. But now it's, as I think, you know, became quite apparent last year, someone like Bicep or whatever are playing on a kind of relatively small stage, and then all of a sudden it's like, we're going to have to shut the field because it's so massive. So I think that was a bit of a wake-up call for Glastonbury, and then this year they have sort of limited those kind of massive electronic acts to, you know, larger stages.
Then what if you're doing something like that and you're working on something, at what point do you leave the site? Do you know what I mean? Is there a prolonged period after?
I mean, in the old days of the Garden, we used to finish Glastonbury, leave Glastonbury Monday night. I would leave, my business partner Tom would be there for another 3-4 days, absolutely cursing me, and I'd go to Croatia at 6 a.m. the next flight, and then party again for like 7 days straight. I actually don't know how we did it, but luckily there's a week between now, which makes things a lot better.
Yeah.
But my team, the build team now that because in those days we were just doing one stage, so it was kind of like a couple of days break. Now our biggest stages, you know, they're there for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. Some people are there for like a few weeks afterwards.
Yeah. Is there any health and safety nightmares involved in what you do? I would think getting that many people together in Croatia would give me the fear.
I mean,
you know?
Yes and no.
No.
Glastonbury is a health and safety exemplar, I suppose you'd say. You know, they're kind of working on the best of the best on, like, in terms of crowd management, health and safety, etc. Croatia, slightly more rough around the edges, I think it'd be fair to say. But the site itself is quite reasonable. But, you know, you do have problems with stuff that you can't control, like the police, as an example, or stuff like that.
I didn't want to bring that one up. I'm glad you did.
No, I mean, it's a problem for us, and it's interesting because lots of young people fell very foul of it, and lots of older people who might have been to Ibiza. I mean, I remember going to Ibiza and getting beaten up by the Guardia Civil and being like, oh, you don't say no, you just say yes to the foreign police, you know what I mean? So I think I learnt quite young, polite, what do you want me to do? But yeah, that's a problem. But, you know, in general, mad taxi drivers, I mean, that's a problem.
That's universal.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So. But in general, no, it's...
But you know what, if you go to somewhere like Croatia and things like that, you're having to obviously deal with the government in some capacity in terms of, because you're importing stuff, you know, and that site seemed to me, there was a lot of festivals that I wasn't even aware of took place. It seems like a rotational thing, you know, when one goes out, another one comes in and things like that. Are the government glad to see festivals coming? You know, are they supportive of it? They're not being a thorn in your side, you know?
No. I mean, it's kind of, well, I mean, you know, you look at Love International as an example. That's, yes, the town gets taken over, but it's generally a very nice, well-behaved, respectful crowd. There's not people going around like causing a scene, etc. And they've picked the right events for it to be like that across the summer. So yeah, the local government and at a national level, you know, I mean, it's brought in a lot of money into that area and kind of regenerated a lot of it. It was interesting when you go there in the off season. There's like no one there.
Right.
It's like literally there's like 2 lights on in the bay. I remember being like, what? Hang on. And so it is a tourist town.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that boost that they get through those summer months is like essential. Yeah. What was it before? Because it seemed like it's like a sort of 70s like, kind of like family.
Not Gazprom, but a like petroleum company like that. It was their holiday village.
Right.
For years.
Right.
And
Okay.
when I first got taken there, Nick and Eddie, who used to, well, Nick still owns it, but Nick and Eddie, who'd started the garden, they took me there. It was like a wet Wednesday in like February or something, and I was like, I'm not seeing your vision here at all. And they were like, really? I was like, it just looks a bit bleak to me. I like the old site, and they were like, leave it with us. And then I got there that year, and I was like, all right. And then they've spent, you know, I think we've been there 14 years maybe, and now the site is amazing. All that infrastructure kind of stays in, a lot of it stays in, and they've obviously spent a lot of money. So you've, like you say, you've got this kind of adult playground that is, well,
it's just perfectly designed really for it. You know, you put magic in there, it's going to be something else. What about, I know I'm going to spring this one on you because we've got
3 minutes left.
3 minutes left.
Make it a good one.
Okay. Well, right, someone you haven't booked who you'd really love to book. Dream lineup.
That's a good one. Do you know what? To be honest, I've sort of like had a lot of the greats that I really wanted to in the last few years. That's a tough one. That's one that I should be able to roll off, isn't it?
What about Massive Attack or something at a Love International?
I mean, Grant, if you're watching, do you want to come? Grant is keen to come and play, but Massive Attack, the band, let's just say it wouldn't work financially. I've booked them a few times.
Right.
They're friends of ours, but
it's a pricey one.
They're not gonna come for the Croatian.
You're not going to lure them with a boat party and some
sunshine? Grant actually, he wants to come, and then when he saw like My Professor and so on, it was on this year, he was quite keen. But
I'll say one last one from me, and then we'll open up the floor for anybody's questions. For any aspiring promoters, DJs, what advice would you give especially around longevity?
I get asked that one a lot, and I would say do it because you love it, because there's a lot easier ways to make money, and also it's very fucking easy to lose loads of money. So if your heart's not in it for first, don't get me wrong, you can want to make money too, but you got to be in it because you're really into it. And I think that the people who survive, you can just see that, can't you?
That's what drives them. Yeah, 100%. Brilliant, thank you. Any questions from the audience for Dave?
I definitely think that stuff needs to be done. So a lot of stuff is actually happening. We're involved in some schemes, there's a lot of schemes going on, but I think there needs to be, realistically, it probably needs to be a government-led sort of support, so that, because young people just can't really start nights now, you know. I could afford to lose 300 quid when I started, but that was my rent. Now it's like, I've grants. It's like young people can't afford to get started. And again, it's the same with festivals, you know. It's like, I think we just got started at the right time. I don't think you'd be able to start like we did now, because the margins on everything have gone absolutely mental, and the world seems to be in some sort of free fall. So yeah, there's definitely some work that needs to be done. That we're having a lot of conversations around it at the minute. There's some interesting stuff coming up with like a levy on tickets that looks like that is going to be happening in the UK, and Bristol actually are looking to pilot a scheme. I don't know how much I should say about it, but basically to do with putting £1 on tickets, which then goes into the sort of like youth thing. We've got a CRC called Big Team. We're doing some work at that, kind of trying to create a bit of a safety net, bursary fund, so that people can like get their first go on. But it is a problem, and it will be an increasing problem. Then I say that, and then you look at some things are like coming through, and it's really good. But I think it's a lot harder for young people to get started now. The other thing that should happen, DJs should all say, do you know what, 1 gig a month, I'm going to go and do it for the 400 quid that this venue can afford, and like put their money where their mouth is, because a lot of them are really good, but a lot of them forget how they've come up. Yeah. And I think it's really important. It's kind of like it falls a lot spiritually on promoters, but I think everybody is part of this ecosystem, so we all need to actually, you know, do our bit.
Support it, or you'll miss it. Yeah. Anyone else? I think you need to be working with people it's stuff that's your world, you know, that you believe in, to actually properly support it properly, you know, like, because there's a lot of great music stuff and styles and little subgenres and things out there, but I don't really fully understand them. But I do think it's really important that, you know, I was saying this before, because people were saying, how do you get booked for a night institute or something like that? And I was going, you come to the party, you know, you show your face, you don't just send us an unsuitable kind of style of music through an email and just go, here's my mix, check it out. And we get that a lot. But I'm saying, I feel like I want to help those people that I see on the dance floors at my events, and then there's an opportunity, and it happened to me, it's how I got my break as well. So you basically, you have an opportunity to chat, pass something on, so you need to go to those places where what you do exists, or, you know, that's the kind of word, you know.
He's put that very well, because that's kind of how I got my, well, I mean, I started my own night because no one would book me to start with, to be fair. But, you know, quite soon after that, it was like being a face at the club every week, and, you know, being excited and enthusiastic for whatever reason it was at that.
But it's important to be in your world. Yeah. It's that thing Dave was saying about passion again. You want to support stuff that you fully understand and you get, and it's exciting you, you know, and that passion back to you know, because people are supporting what it is that you do. So I do think there's a lot of really good people in a lot of different worlds, you know, within music that care about that still, you know, like we were talking about Giles Peterson and all, so really, you can just tell how much passion that guy has, you know what I mean? Like, because the girl from Worldwide was telling me that he had a recording studio or a radio station in his flat, then he had one in his house, he kept both, and then he goes to the BBC and I was going, this guy lives and breathes this, but he's also all the time looking for other people who feel as passionate about what he does, you know? So you feel, I know certainly I do, I want to support those people who I can see that from, you know, like, and I can see also on the other side of it, I can see the people who are in it for different reasons. I don't feel like I want to super help them as much, because there's another thing driving them. It might be money, it might be fame or whatever it is. Not really interested in that, but when you're in a crowd or in a world you can kind of spot those people who have got that passion that you have, and you want to pass that baton and keep that going.
There's a lot of good people out there doing it. It's making me think of like Weatherall, Keith, you know, all these people who bring people through, and you know, it's mainly people that they've met and gone, oh right, you're into it.
Yeah, they can tell. We love it. I want to help you. So, is that us? Okay, thanks very much, Dave.